Hello everyone, my name is José Luis Enriquez Chiñas. I am a PhD candidate in the Political Science Department at UW-Madison, and this summer I will be the instructor for PS104, Introduction to American Politics and Government. Because the class will be entirely online, we will not meet in person, I decided to make this video in order to 1. Introduce myself and our TA, 2. Tell you a little about the class, walk you through the syllabus, explain what is expected of you, and 3. Show you how the Canvas site for the class is structured. My work as a political scientist focuses on election law and election administration in the United States and in Latin America. So I really like teaching this class because it allows me to go back to and revise the building blocks of American politics and make them accessible to students like you. Whether you are taking this class because you are a poli-sci major, or are taking it as a requirement for a different major, or are simply taking it because it sounded interesting, I am confident that you will not be disappointed. Now, there is no wrong time to study American politics, but this is an especially exciting time to do so, with a presidential administration that is radically different from the previous one, the upcoming midterm elections, the consequences, economic and social, of the COVID-19 pandemic, continuing debates over reproductive rights, infrastructure, social justice, healthcare, energy and global warming, immigration, gun control, calls for reforming congressional rules and the judiciary, and, in general, growing concerns about polarization and gridlock in Washington. I look forward to engaging with you on all of these topics. Before we move on, let me introduce you to the rest of the team. The class will have one TA, Rebecca Anderson.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Anderson, and I'm a JD PhD student at the University of Wisconsin Political Science Department and Law School, and I'm really looking forward to working with you this summer as your TA.
This is the 3rd year that Rebecca and I work together in this class, so I think we're starting to get good at it. Let's move on to how the class is structured. This version of PS104 is designed specifically for an online experience. As such, I have favored asynchronous assignments. Other than the midterm and final exams, there will be no synchronous activities. That is, there will be no lectures and no discussion sections. Instead, students are expected to submit a series of scheduled assignments that show us you are engaging with the class materials. I think the easiest way of explaining this is by breaking down a typical week. On Mondays at 8 a.m., I will post an episode of the PS104 podcast, hosted by me. Every episode of the podcast will be between 20 and 30 minutes. I will talk about the topics assigned for that week, as well as what is the importance of each of the complementary readings. Listening to the podcast is mandatory. You can listen to it at your own pace. You can download it as an MP3 file from our Canvas or subscribe to it on Apple Podcasts. Make sure you listen to it on a timely manner, though, because at the end of every podcast, I will give out the discussion questions for that week. The podcast notes will include the names of the students that have to write a response paper that week. More on that in a minute. Also on Mondays at 8 a.m., the pages for that week's quizzes and discussions will become available on Canvas. Let's now jump to Wednesday. By Wednesday at midnight, the students assigned for that week will have to submit a response paper to the discussion questions mentioned at the end of Monday's podcast. The response paper will have to be of between 400 and 500 words and will be posted on the discussion section of our Canvas. These discussion assignments will begin on the 2nd week of the class. Let's move on to Thursday. By Thursday at midnight, you have to complete one of the quizzes for that week. There will be 2 quizzes available each week, one for each of that week's topics. You can choose whichever topic you prefer. On Fridays at midnight, you have to submit to Canvas one multiple choice question with 5 possible answers and one short answer question with its answer. Both questions must be related to that week's topics. They can be based on content from either the corresponding textbook chapters or the complementary readings. Finally, all the students that were not assigned to write a response paper for that week must go to the discussion tab of Canvas, read their classmates' response papers, choose one, and post a comment under that response paper explaining why you think it is the most compelling one. These comments must be between 100 and 200 words and are due Sundays at midnight. So to reiterate, Every week, you are expected to submit 3 assignments, either a response paper or a comment on our discussion forum, a completed quiz, and 2 questions with their answers. Besides these assignments, there will be 1 midterm exam on July 15 and 1 final exam on August 12. Throughout the term, we will cover 16 topics, 2 topics per week. The first block is on the foundations of American politics. On the first week, we will cover an introduction to the class and the Constitution. On the second week, we will discuss federalism and civil liberties. On the second block, we will examine the American political institutions, Congress and the courts on the third week, and the presidency and the bureaucracy on the fourth. From there, we move to the third block, political participation. On the fifth week, we will talk about public opinion and campaigns and elections, while in the sixth week, we will discuss political parties and interest groups. Finally, we will see how it all fits together by examining public policy on the fourth block. On the seventh week, we will cover civil rights and social policy, and in the final week, we will go over economic policy and foreign policy. Each of these 16 topics is assigned a corresponding chapter on the textbook, as well as a series of complementary readings. The complementary readings come mostly from the Enduring Debate book, but I have also assigned some pieces that talk about cutting-edge findings in political science or about current issues in American politics. And by current, I mean from the last few weeks. The reading load ranges from moderate to heavy, so I strongly recommend that you don't fall back on the readings, both because you need to do the readings in order to submit the assignments, and because you will not be able to catch up on the readings on the last couple of days before the exam. Let me now show you how to navigate our Canvas site. This is the homepage. At the top, you will find 5 quick link buttons. The podcast button will take you to that week's podcast. From here, you can download it as an MP3 file or follow the link and subscribe on Apple Podcasts. By the way, if you are not an Apple user, please let me know what's your preferred podcast provider and I will try to submit the podcast there. The discussion button will take you to the discussion page. Every week, starting on the second week of the class, there will be 2 discussion threads, 1 per each topic covered. The discussion and quizzes buttons will take you to the respective assignments for that week. You will be able to submit each assignment by entering text directly on the browser or by uploading a file. Going back to the homepage, there is a link to this very video, and the rest of the page will list the topics that will be covered in the class. There is a dedicated page for each of them. Let's go into one of them as an example. As you can see, there is a list of the readings assigned for that week, including links to the readings that are not in the books. There is a link to the discussion thread for that week, and then there is a series of resources developed by Norton, the publisher of our textbook. These exercises are in no way mandatory, but I recommend you take advantage of them if you have the time. They are a great way of expanding and testing your knowledge, especially as you prepare for the exams. Let's now go to one of the quizzes. You click on the topic of your choice and it will take you to the Inquisitive website. The first time that you visit, it will ask you to create an account and it may require a proof of purchase for the book. Please let me know if you have any trouble accessing this resource. That's our Canvas. One last thing. I will have office hours every Monday from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. You can come to my office hours in order to talk about anything related to the class. Readings that you don't understand, assignments that are not clear to you, if you have questions about any topic as you prepare for the exams, etc. You can send me an email to set up a Zoom meeting during my office hours. And actually, if you are in Madison, feel free to come in person to my office. I am in room 411 in the North Hall building. If my office hours don't work for you, let me know and I am sure we can find a time that works for both of us for a Zoom meeting. And that is going to be it for me today. Please let me know if you have any questions by sending me an email at jlenriquez@wis.edu. I look forward to working with you this summer. Have a nice day!